Thank you, and good morning, and I wish you all a great day and a great tenure as school committee members. Many of you may know that I started my career 30 years ago as a school committee member, and I know the challenge of your task, but the absolute importance of the work that you do to bridge that space between what your community wants and values and how your school district is executing on that vision is critically important. So when I come to a group like this, and I will always come whenever invited to speak with my school committee colleagues, I really come as someone who wants to think deeply with you about what we're doing moving forward, and how we're going to do better and better for kids, because that's really the essence of a healthy organization. Isn't necessarily where the organization is right now, but what is its strategy to keep getting better at getting better. And one thing that I've learned, and it's a very humble lesson that I've learned over my 30 years, is there's a difference between professionals and systems. Professionals are driven by so much to keep getting better at their craft and to be at the top of their game. Systems, however, are a bit different. Systems often don't change unless they have to change. It's just the nature of a system. Systems tend to continue what they're doing, and almost always what systems are doing is good and it's worth continuing. So there's an inherent conservatism in systems, but they don't change unless they have to. There's often system changes are preceded by existential moments. And right now we're in the midst of some of those moments. One, I'm going to talk a little bit about two pressures on the system. The first is the economy. We're in the midst of a very slow recovery. And we know, all of us, we know that we have to do better, if only doing better is better alignment between where we're going with our economy, where we are with preparation to participate and grow that economy, and how our school system interfaces with that. But we know we have to do better. We know that far too few of our students are coming out ready to go in that world, whether it's straight into the workforce or into college. And it's not a new lesson. Yeah, right now we have the PARCC scores, which tell us about 35% of our students are hitting proficiency. Am I hitting buttons? Is that what's happening? Okay. So right now we have the PARCC scores. Right now we have the PARCC scores, but it goes back. You can look at college achievement rates back in the 1950s and 1960s, and they align pretty closely with our PARCC scores right now. 1950s, 1960s, 35-40% of our adults achieved college going rates. Here, 40, 50 years later, 35-40% of our students are achieving proficiency. So we know we're at a plateau. And we know that that plateau is differentially distributed, where our kids in more affluent communities tend to be doing much better than our kids in less affluent communities. We know that. And we know that if we just do more of the same, if we just hunker down on stapling the kids to their seats and the seats staple to the floor and just focus on remediation, we know we're never going to get the results that we need. We know that we have to put instructional design on the table, so it's not just doing what we're doing better, but doing what we're doing differently. We know all of those things. And we need to be pushed for that kind of alignment. So that's why we're talking about not doing one-size-fits-all education, not doing one-size-fits-all graduation requirements, but really putting instructional design front and center and talking about pathways for students. Because if we just push the students through the system, it's that whole meat grinder metaphor. If you just put the kids through the system, and schooling is about surviving the system, we're never going to serve kids as well as we need to serve kids. So we need to do the best that we can to organize a system around kids. So that's why things like pathways are so important. That's why things like offering students opportunity for deeper experiential hands-on learning opportunities to complement, not prevent and get in the way of traditional academic approaches, but to complement those traditional academic approaches. That's why relevance and engagement, hooking students in terms of their passions and their interests and their strengths, is so critical to getting even better results out of our school system. One of the most difficult things to do is to help a student who's 3, 4, 5 years behind in terms of reading proficiency. It's so difficult to do, and we tend to just wish our teachers good luck by saying, differentiate instruction. It's one of the hardest things to do in the world. But if you've got the student on your side because you've hooked their passions, you've pulled them in because they're totally engaged, totally enthused, then that task becomes that much easier. So we need to have those kinds of economic and social justice challenges on us to make the system better and better for kids, which does involve redesigning and rethinking the way we currently do schooling. And you're at the center of those questions. Because the people you hire to implement the school district, they'll bring you recommendations, but you're the people as school committee members who ask the questions, who pose the challenges on how to get the system better and better. That's it's a really hard thing to do, but it's a fairly non-controversial thing to say, what I just said. The system needs to keep getting better and better. But in the meantime, we have another external pressure that's coming in on our system, which is people are choosing to not attend our system. We don't pay attention to all the parents around the country who homeschool their children. We just don't pay attention to it. They just disappear. But they did it for a reason. Now, those reasons are different. Very different depending on the family. But there's people who choose to homeschool their kids. There's people who choose to spend their own money, in addition to paying for local school taxes, tend to spend their own money on private and parochial school enrollment. There's a reason why they do that. Those reasons are very different. Some of them are for deeply held religious convictions, and some of them are because they just don't see the local school as an option for their kids. And then we have a public pressure that puts it on the system. It's called charter schools. Apparently, I'm on the cover of the Providence Journal this morning talking about, it's always unnerving when you walk into public spaces and you don't realize that you were on the cover of the paper, but talking about charter schools. So we had 8 recommendations that we just put out yesterday, 6 expansion requests and 2 2 new schools. And we denied, I recommended denial of a large number of those recommendations, those expansion requests and those new school requests. And the reason why we recommended denial for the council on Tuesday is because those proposals need to be better. They need to do better results. So this is not ideology. This is not just Wagner wants more charter schools, Wagner wants to undermine the district system, it's not ideology. We're not about choice for choice's sake. We're about putting healthy pressure on the systems because systems don't change unless they have to. And we have thousands of kids, 19,000 kids across the state that are sitting in schools that have been identified as in need of significant improvement, not just for a year or 2 years or 3 years, but for decades. We have kids who are sitting in schools that not only are not doing right by their kids, but did not do right by their grandparents. Multi-generational challenges. Now, we need, of course, to support our district schools. Districts will always serve 90, 85, 80% of the kids. No matter how friendly a state is to charter schools, districts are always the biggest game in town, always. So we can't ignore that. We have to support our teachers, our principals, our superintendents, our school committees. We have to have fair and equitable funding. We have to do all of those kinds of things. But systems do not change unless they have to. In Providence alone, we have 15,000 kids that are sitting in struggling schools. And we have, for example, Achievement First, which is a proven partner. They've built charter schools not just in Rhode Island. Their math scores are, if they were a district, their math scores in 3rd grade are second best in the state, and their English scores are above the state average. They've done this kind of work in other states as well, and they've said, hey, we can help with 3,000 of those 15,000 kids in Providence. We can help. So the question that I have to ask myself is, why would I turn away that help? What are we going to do differently? We've known that we've had, charter schools have been in the landscape for 25 years. For 25 years. Nobody in Providence could possibly say that this is a surprise. We've known that charter schools were on the horizon for 25 years. So anybody who wakes up and say, oh my God, Achievement First is a 3,000 school proposal, nobody's surprised by this. And they're saying we can help. And I say, let's do both. It's not let's undermine the district system and go in terms of charter schools. And it's not that we pretend that the district system is doing just fine and ignore the help of charter schools. We need to do both because we have kids who need the help right now. Right now. This is very simple. So people say charters are skimming off the top. Yeah, in some places that may be the case because the selection process is a little bit. It's not the case in Providence with Achievement First. Achievement First is two of the elementary schools that are listed. Every single parent that registers their kid for kindergarten looks at a form, and that form has all of the elementary school choices. Achievement First has 2 of those choices. So applying for this charter school is as simple as checking a box on a form that they're going to fill out anyway. That's not differential engagement. That's checking a box that every family has to check off. So if you are worried about skimming, yeah, I get it in some scenarios. Actually, Providence and Achievement First is a best practice. Every charter school, in my opinion, should be listed on your enrollment form so you don't have to worry about skimming. Then it truly is a lottery. So then people say the money is owed to the district. The money is not owed to the district. The money is raised on behalf of local, state, and national taxpayers for the purpose of educating our youth. And when that money is well spent, then of course it should go toward the district. It'll always go majority toward the district. But if there's a challenge, I believe the money should serve the kids, not serve the system. The money was raised to educate youth. It's not owed to the district. When the district is doing what it needs to do, then yes, of course, it should be a sole provider. But when the district is not necessarily doing everything, or it could just use some help, why do we insist on a sole service provider model? We don't insist on a sole service provider model anywhere else except in government. And in government, sole service provider is just the expected norm.